I'm not in Krakow. This is my house, but I was there with my barely functioning Nikon Z5 and hardly any time. So come with me to see what it's like to shoot Poland's second city in just 3 hours. You might be wondering, why on earth do you only have 3 hours to shoot Krakow? Well, despite what my personality might suggest, I do have friends and sometimes even find myself travelling with them. The thing is, photography and friendship, as you probably know, don't really mix well together, and like having an affair, it's better to sneak off and do it without your friends watching. With a 1 hour timer set on my phone, I don't have long before I need to meet my friend for breakfast and officially begin my day as a tourist. Since my Airbnb being right in the old town, it doesn't take long before I find myself at Krakow's main square. Rebuilt in the 13th century after the Mongols paid a rather destructive visit, the square's become the heartbeat of the city's medieval old town. At its centre is the cloth hall, where merchants once traded spices, silks and other medieval fare. These days it's home to handcrafted souvenirs, fridge magnets and knives. During the 1940s, a certain guy named Adolf, you may have heard of him, decided to rename the square after himself. Thankfully, the name didn't stick too long and today it's back to the rightful name of
Rynek główny.
At this point, I was lacking a bit of confidence that I'd be able to take any good photos, but not wanting to stray too far from my Airbnb, I decided to mainly hang around the old square and do a few laps. I've always struggled with the balancing act of capturing interesting photos that include local people without intruding too much on their privacy, but sometimes you really can't miss out on an opportunity. Like this guy sketching in his notebook, perfectly framed by the archway with the tower in the background, he was basically asking for it. As the clock started to run out on my morning walk, I made my way back to my accommodation, heading down
Floriańska.
one of Krakow's oldest and most iconic roads, once part of the Royal Route. A historical pathway through the old town connecting the northern part of the city to Wawel Castle, now lined with cafes, shops and centuries of stories. My own story from the street is from the previous night when a man offered me chicken and kebab, a thought-provoking combination. And just like that, it was time for breakfast and to start a full day of sightseeing. The next day, I gave myself a bit more time, 2 whole hours in fact, with a plan to head towards the castle and finish in the Jewish quarter. In hindsight, I probably should have just taken a taxi straight to the Jewish quarter and worked my way back to the Airbnb. And once again, the morning started off a little bit slow. Not having many ideas, I started photographing trams. Surely things would pick up once I got to the castle. Wawel Castle, a fortress built in the 11th century, proudly perches on a limestone hill 25 metres above the Vistula River. With its Romanesque foundations, Renaissance embellishments and Gothic additions, it kind of sounds a bit like my fashion sense as a teenager. Strolling around the castle grounds in the morning was genuinely nice, and the pace of the city is fairly relaxed. What's also amazing is how remarkably unscathed Krakow was by the Second World War. Physically, that is. German occupation followed by the Soviets doesn't really sound like much of a laugh to me. On the other side of the castle, there's a view down to the previously mentioned Vistula River, the longest river in Poland, and also my favourite, but the only one I know. A few months ago, every video in my algorithm seemed to be hyping up how amazing Poland is, and well, the propaganda's worked and I'm back in Poland, and I'm pretty happy to be taking some photos. For years, I didn't really travel with a camera. Ironically, working in photography made me want to do anything but take photos whilst on a trip. Either that when I was away on a shoot, I didn't really have the energy or time for personal work. But a few things change. Firstly, and mainly, it just feels like a shame to visit a new country and come back without a single photo. Take Sofia, Bulgaria for example. Aside from a photo shoot I did there, I only have one photo on my phone of that whole trip, and it's of a sex shop. And no, I didn't go in. Okay, I did, but I didn't buy anything. Well, nothing too strange. And just like that, my morning walk was over, and so was my time in Poland. So, in conclusion, 3 hours definitely is not enough time to shoot a YouTube video and take decent photos, so lesson learned. But Krakow is pretty good. It's not as cheap as it used to be, but it's clean, safe, friendly in a non-smiley kind of way, and still great value. Speaking of great value, if you want to support me for free, please check out my website. It's packed with travel blogs, articles and plenty more of my nonsense.